When you hear the word diabetes, what do you think of? What comes to mind?
You know, I hate to say it, but usually I think of somebody who's overweight, was my first thought. But now after I've been through some little seminars and educational type things, that I realize that it's not just somebody who's overweight and not taking care of themselves. And so it can be anybody. You know, it can, be your friend down the street. It can be, your pastor. It can be your best friend, and you don't know it. And I think another lot of things is people don't share that they have it, so you don't know who does and who doesn't.
Okay, let's talk just a little bit more about that.
Okay.
Not sharing or not talking about it. How do you find out someone has diabetes?
I think one of the supervisors here is diabetic, and the only way I found out about that is by just kind of being around him and hearing him say he's got to watch his diet, and had noticed that he had changed the way he was eating and the snacking and things like that, and that was the only way that I knew. It wasn't that they shared it, it was by their actions and being around them enough personally and close enough to see that their diet had changed.
So you have to, as a person in the community, would have to be sensitive to even know that people have it.
And usually I would say probably if you're only on a pretty close relationship with someone, do you know that they do have it?
And you're here in Macon several days a week at least.
Yes.
How many people do you interact with on a normal day, average day, would you say you think might have diabetes?
I would tend to guess probably just the one that I know of, for sure, that I see on a regular basis. But I do know I know of a couple families that have some young children that are not teenagers yet that have juvenile diabetes. And I'm aware of them, but other than that, I'm not too aware of anybody else.
Okay. And chances are you're probably meeting lots of people.
Exactly, yes.
That doesn't get mentioned, doesn't get discussed.
No, unless you may be out to eat or something, and that would probably bring it up, with saying something, about what they're eating or something like that. So.
Now, do you have diabetes in your family?
My dad did have diabetes before he passed away. But it was controlled with dieting and things. He died from a heart attack and had a 4 bypass 9 years prior. And I'm not even really sure how long he had diabetes before he passed away, but it wasn't many years, maybe 3 or 4 years. But it was all, he had started walking. He was doing the walking with his heart anyway, but then was controlling it just with diet. And so it was just kind of borderline.
Okay. So, you didn't grow up here?
No.
And you grew up in the north?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. When you moved here, what were the differences that you noticed in between the communities? What did you notice when you moved here?
Chicken on every corner. Fried chicken. As far as a food type thing, that's it. Southerners love to eat. Northerners like to eat too, but it just seemed to be different. There was, I don't know how to, I guess after being 16 years, I tend to kind of forget what it was like back then, but it was, we would stop and get fast food, or at a restaurant, but you had a lot of choices at your restaurants up north. You could get a salad, you could get, a baked potato, or things, of that nature. You had a lot of choices, and maybe it's because I'm now getting more in a fast-paced world with 2 teenagers now that it's fast food, and but now I'm more aware of the diabetes, of thinking of how it can affect them, and watching what they're eating way more than what I have probably in the last 5 or 6 years. But food, I would say, other than food being a difference from north to south, is, the friendliness here. You can just talk to anybody. and and it's like you haven't seen them for months, but you're still really good friends and can pick up right where you left off at.
What about activity? What kinds of activity?
We have a lot of opportunities for kids and for adults. I mean, we've got walking tracks, we've got, summer league baseball programs, we've got school programs. But the biggest thing, I also teach baton twirling, and I would love to get more kids involved in it. But the biggest thing that I come across is if transportation isn't provided for them, they're not going to participate. And so that makes it hard, and I think the kids I have found out through my kids that other children don't go outside and play. They don't know what it's just to go out and run or ride a bicycle or whatever. And so we have those opportunities for the kids, but I just don't think maybe the parents aren't as aware of how much it's needed, that the kids do need to go out and do that. I was just talking to my daughter the other day that things are so different now than what they were when I grew up, because there weren't all these other things to do to fill your time up. So we were going outside and swimming and playing and riding bikes and, throwing the baseball back and forth or whatever. And now there's all these, not just video games and TV, but there's like even more TV channels to watch than the 3 or 4 that I grew up with.
Right.
And so it makes it, I think it's harder as a parent to go, oh, well, they're content, they're doing what they like to do, and so they're all right, so let's not, they're content, so we don't have to push them to go do that stuff.
What about shopping in the area? What do you see at the local grocery stores?
For a small town, we are really blessed to have as much as what we have and available to us. And we've got a great grocery store that's got pretty much everything that you would want, with produce, vegetables, canned goods, baked, everything that you could need, you can get here in town. As far as, everybody complains we don't have a Walmart, but we have $4 stores. So if you can't get it there, there's something wrong.
Is that a $4 store or $4 $1?
4 $1 stores. Well, actually, there's a Fred's, there's a Dollar General, a Family Dollar, and a Bill's Dollar Store.
Right,
so.
good whole plug.
Yeah. So they're not all necessarily that $1 Dollar Tree store, right. But yes.
So do they have food?
Yes. Actually, I think now, if I'm not mistaken, I think every one of our dollar stores has some type of food. I think there's one that maybe does not. But I think all the others have some line of food and have coolers available, and most of the gas stations do too.
Mm-hmm. And the foods that you can buy in these other places,
yes.
Are there any fresh fruits and vegetables?
Not at the dollar stores, there isn't. It's just going to be your quick microwave, freezer, canned goods. There's not going to be your fresh apples or bananas or anything like that at them. And some of the gas stations actually do carry some fresh produce. You might be able to find a couple bunches of bananas or apples sitting in a basket at the gas stations and stuff. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay, and so my next question then is, what about cooking? So are people, what are they buying and what are they cooking and fixing and eating for their meals?
Wow. I see a lot of people, at the grocery store buying, the fresh meats and, but then you also see a lot of the packaged frozen, macaroni and cheese and the TV dinners and things like that. And so I have a feeling that, and see a lot of oil. So I'm sure there's a lot of fried food being cooked. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know some friends that she'll cook a batch of wings and fried chicken do fry your wings and fry the rest of parts of chicken and stuff, and do collard greens and the bacon and all that stuff. I don't eat that stuff, but I do the fried chicken, but not the collard greens. But the greens and things like that, they'll do up just for one meal, but it takes all day long. And I'm thinking, wow, that just amazes me how they can cook all that, and it's gone, and there's no leftovers. It's like, I want a little bit of leftovers if I'm going to cook all day long. And if, I think to cook, and I don't cook the freshest food either. I wish I did. But I think I kind of grew up in a middle spot, too, that we didn't have a garden, and so I wouldn't even know what to do with fresh green beans. That's sad to say.
Yeah. So, do people here have gardens?
Yes. There's quite a few that do have gardens. I would say it's probably more in the Mennonite community. They have gardens, and some of the older black community will have gardens. You don't see too many of the younger people having gardens, or do anything with them and stuff. So,
what about a farmer's market?
I've not been up there, and I really haven't ventured up there to check, but we do have a farmer's market that's open 3 days a week.
Where's it at?
It's up on the highway, across from the high school. And from what I've heard, they're only open like June and July, and maybe part into August, depending on what the farmers bring in and stuff. And so I think that's one thing for that particular area is something that we need to promote more. And I don't know how we can go about doing that, but I think it needs to get out more that we do need to rely more on those fresh vegetables.
Do you think that the market location is pretty central for most people in the county? Or?
I think it is, with it being up on the highway. And then we also have a great tomato house that they raise homegrown tomatoes, organically grown up there, that people come from all over for the tomato house. That's usually year-round. There's times that they go down for a little bit of time in between crops and stuff, but...
Where's that?
And that's actually right across the street from the farmer's market.
Oh, okay. But that's open all the time?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What way do you think families support people that have diabetes?
The only way that, honestly, that I know that how we do as a family is just in prayer. It's just... Prayer is a big thing. Church is a big thing in the South. I know it's the Bible Belt, but that's usually, you will hear people say, well, we're praying for you, And a lot of times you could hear people say that they're praying for you and you're like, oh, they're just saying that. But I really, truly believe when you hear somebody say that down here, it's true. They are going to be praying for you.
And, do you think that there are things in the community or the county that either put you at risk for health problems or could promote health? Let's talk about risk first.
At risk, I think if there would be some way to find out, everybody loves fried chicken. You're not going to be able to get people to stop eating fried chicken. But if there would be a way to be able to promote how to either cook it better, clean the oils out, doing something better along that lines. And I think I think it's just second nature. They're just doing it, and and it's just a quick thing to go get. I'll never forget when we first moved down here, and I would drive to the gas station in the morning, and people getting fried chicken at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, that's breakfast?
So it's eaten.
It's 24/7. You can. I don't know if there's anywhere that you can get chicken in the middle of the night here, but they are starting to fry chicken at 7:30 in the morning. Yes.
Okay.
But I would think that's the biggest thing of at risk is, just what our restaurants have available and things like that to us. If we could, I mean, I don't know if that would be the best way where to start, but
one place. Definitely.
Yes, exactly.
And what about what can we do for prevention?
I think prevention, we're doing well, starting to get the word out. There's been a lot more in the last, year with y'all coming to town and different things. And I think just making people more and more aware and it coming up and just hearing the word of diabetes and getting out there. I don't know if just more in the schools, for the kids to hear it. Sometimes, we think that, the kids will know it and they'll take care of it. Well, they don't know. They might hear about it, but they don't. And until you kind of sit down and go through it with them and show them an example of what can happen if it's not taken care of. And they show all these, examples of if you smoke too much, what's going to happen. Well, there's other things too. And I think, diabetes and heart, they're just not put out there enough to say, if you exercise more now, you may not have to worry about that later.
Exactly. And what about the kids' parents?
The parents need to too. I think a lot of times I can't remember where I heard it at, but I want to say if it was one of the fire chiefs or somebody said that if we can get the message home through the kids, they can change their parents. And I think it was our past fire chief doing smoke detector lesson or something like that. And he says if we can get in and tell the kids how dangerous it is not to have a smoke detector, then the parents get more aware of it.
It's a lot of responsibility to put on children.
It is a lot of responsibility. Yeah. And I think unfortunately we've got a big gap in our kids and the parents, that the parents kind of tend to go, oh, here they are. Not all of them, but there's, I think, a good part of the community that, they're in school, and so the school should be taking care of them. And I don't agree with that at all, that I think the family needs to do a lot of teaching on their own at home. But if they're not getting it at home, then that's the next best place.
It seems that a big challenge is how to provide people in the middle information.
Yes.
And I've had a number of people who mention church, how important church is. Do you think there is a role for church?
Yes. And that was I was going to say also, that I think a lot of parents go, well, if the school doesn't teach them, then the church will. Or if the church doesn't, I think the parental role has really been lost, and I don't know how and when it's gotten lost. But I think it's also with so many young parents coming up that they're so young and they don't know either, and they're learning. And I had my kids late in life, but I feel like I've learned so much more than I ever even knew when I first had the kids, and go, wow, okay, I wish I knew this when they were born, to do things different, Right.
So what do you think churches might do to make a
I think if churches did some little workshops, and had, the same way that you do a Bible study, do a study on diabetes, but if you can, do it when everybody's there.
Yeah.
Don't make it a night when they've got to come back out, for something, because they're just not going to tend to come and do that. But if you can do it along with another type of a program that you're having, to have a special speaker and come and share, I think, makes a big difference. If, maybe somebody who's gone through or has diabetes and has a wonderful testimony to share would be a great way to bring it into the church setting to see. And I think then people would go, oh, okay.
Pastors are used to addressing spiritual needs. Do you think that they're open to also thinking about the health or physical well-being?
I think so. I think some of them are because I think they're becoming more aware of it also and hearing about it more. Mm-hmm. And, we've got a wide range of ages of pastors in the community, from young to older, middle age and everything, and we've got several groups of the pastors. They meet several times as a community or as a group, as prayer times, just as pastors. And I'm sure that they would, might be talking about some of their health issues with each other.
It's a challenging thing to think about how to address. Do you know how many counties or how many churches are in this county?
Wow. We have a lot. I knew that number at one time, and I can't. There has got to be, I'm sure there's way over 100. My grandfather came down from Indiana one time, and he says, there's a church on every corner. And there almost is. I mean, within just almost eyesight distance from here, I'm trying to think, there's 1, there's 2, 3, 4, there's at least 5 or 6 just within probably 3 city blocks from where we're at right now. And then out in the county, and more in the country and rural area, there's more, because they used to be community churches. And so those were family churches. So if there was a family that started growing in a certain area, their church was right there. Mm-hmm. And so there's churches just all over.
Mm-hmm. So how do you get the word out to all of these small churches?
Mm-hmm.
And
it's hard because I deal with it with other issues in the community too, and trying to get them aware of different things. And the pastoral committee for the county is probably the best way to get a hold of them, because a lot of them don't have full-time pastors. They're shared pastors, and they don't even have a post office, or don't have a post office box or a mailing box at the church location. It's just somebody within the church is the mailing address where they get that information at. Mm-hmm. And so you almost have to have that contact on the inside to get the word out.
Does the chamber have a list of all the churches?
Yes, we do. Mm-hmm.
That's good information.
Yes.
Good place to start then. What's going on in the schools today related to health?
I was thinking about that before I came over, and honestly, with 2 kids in the school, I can't say that there is anything, other than their sports activities.
Do they have physical education every day? Or?
No. Now, K through 4, I think that they do have. No, I take that back. It's offered every day, but not every class goes every day, I don't think. I know at the middle school, only because my son was in football, he had some type of conditioning and training with football every day. And the kids who are not in sports either, and I may be wrong in this, either do a PE class or do a computer class. But they may be, and it's not always a physical education class, because my daughter was in it this year, and they didn't always go outside and didn't always do some type of physical activity. They were doing some book stuff too, but not even did, the old time, what I'm saying, like the warm up of the jumping jacks and the sit-ups and the push-ups all in the line together doing that. They did a little bit of that, but it wasn't an everyday thing.
What do you think, and you probably have interaction with teachers and superintendents and principals, where do you think they're at in thinking about healthy lifestyle?
I think they know that it's important and it needs to be addressed, but they have so many other issues to deal with that I think it's a high priority, but they just don't know how to go about doing it and managing all the different things that they've got going on. How do we deal with that too? And so, then I think they're aware of it. I know several years ago, they okay, we're not having junk food in the vending machines and different things like that. And they used to have slushies at the elementary school when the kids were there. And I'll never forget, kids came home and said, "Mom, we had a 100% grape juice slushie today." I thought, ooh, that doesn't sound very good. And it really wasn't, but they were trying to mix the two and help, and said, then we're not selling Krispy Kreme donuts, and we're not doing this and stuff. But then you turn around, and a year and a half later, they're back doing that, and then they're selling slushies. And so there's,
what happens at ball games?
Oh, hot dogs, Cokes, nachos. Not too many health issues there.
Yeah. And because you're working with the chamber, what do you see as far as workplaces? Are workplaces trying to address health?
We don't have a lot of huge industries where they would have like a workout program or a cafeteria on site or anything like that. And so I'm not real sure how some of them are doing it. I know there's, I think, one or two that have promoted the Healthy Well or Healthy Me. I think that Blue Cross Blue Shield or something was promoting that they have gone in with that and doing that type of doing a wellness checkup and things like that.
Right. Okay. If you could just say one thing, what do you think is the most important thing people need to know about diabetes?
I think being educated on what an individual goes through, because I know there's so many different levels of diabetes, from being just medicating it with your diet or watching it with the diet and being borderline to having the shots and so much more than what I even know. But I think just, that more education that we can get as individuals, the best, will be better for all of us. And just making it aware that it can be anybody. It's not just because Grandma and Grandpa had it, that you're going to get it. But, and that's why we need to watch out for it. But it can be anybody. And that's just education to it.
Okay, I think I've asked all the questions. Is there anything else you'd like to add that I didn't ask or you think is important about diabetes or promoting a healthy lifestyle?
No, I just wish we could promote our walking tracks that we have, and making people more aware that they are there, and making them more secure, that people feel comfortable going to them and things like that. So
I think that's a really important point, because too often people are concentrating on getting these things available, but then nobody uses them.
Exactly.
So that needs to be part of the plan.
Yes, and to have, maybe something else available other than just a walking track, because not everybody wants to go out and walk, but...
What else would you add?
I don't know.
All right, well, that may be something to actually talk to people about.
Yeah, and see, because they've got a couple of the machines where just your legs swing on them.
Right.
And I think, maybe for some of the older people that maybe can't physically go and walk, but they could at least maybe hold themselves up and have the legs going, and doing something like that would maybe be a possibility.
Yeah.